I'm lost for words. I'm really lost for words because that, for me, we've had some titanic races this year, and you've went on to explore the greatness of what those races were. But, they pale into insignificance as to what this race was. It was possibly the greatest race I've ever seen. I thought it was the greatest example of control. Max knowing his rule book inside out better than anyone else in the paddock. And he knew not to jump those lights, and he was under no issue. Honestly, those guys could have got a 10-second penalty and he could have won by 30 seconds, but it didn't matter. He was so calm about it. He was calculating. He was exemplary. For me, this was a masterclass of how a racing driver reaches the pinnacle of his career and becomes a fourth-time world champion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I was just excited for a moment when you said you're lost for words. I was just about to tell you, hold that thought, and then you found your words and went off on a monologue.
DC, I lie a lot, don't you worry.
It was a remarkable race. Another one which I enjoyed from the comfort of my sofa. But I'll be back on track for the final 3 races of the year. And it's really the sort of ebb and flow, the momentum looked like it was with McLaren, looked like it was with Lando. And all of a sudden, we get that roller coaster of emotion. You had Max angry and frustrated on Sunday morning after what he felt was a bit of an injustice in qualifying. It is what it is. These things are beyond your control. And then if we look at the previous 1,121 World Championship races, only 5 have ever been won from 17th or lower, making this achievement even more remarkable. And who was a driver out of those 5 who features in that list twice, who won you know who it is?
Oh, he's such an old dickhead, old Watty. I absolutely adore him. Watty, we love you. You've got an adoring fans here. Can you get your ass down here and come on a programme with DC and me? You have a whole big story to tell. You've done this twice. To come from 17th, and I remember those tyres, when you had the Michelin tyres, in Detroit in particular, God, John, you were just an unbelievable legend in those races. And if only for those races, we'd love you to come on and tell us, what was going through your mind, because it was dry in those conditions. You were just an example. Everyone got their mouth open. They couldn't believe how quick you were. So please, John, this is a message to John Watson out there, anchors. Can you please write into us and please request the appearance of John Watson on our programme. We love you, John, and I want you here.
Max, he said, what a rollercoaster emotion, frustrated and angry in the morning, and then just mighty in the afternoon. I think he had like 17 or 18 consecutive fastest laps. And it's the sort of stuff that when I was reflecting on it, it's the reason why I think I fell in love with the sport. It was about wanting to see excellence, seeing people doing things that is, you go, that's unbelievable, but it is fact. And I think that it probably calmed a lot of the sort of growing sort of finger pointing and frustration or anger, or whatever terminology you want to use, that was building towards Max, because he's his own man. He speaks his mind. He's not going to dance to anyone's tune, and that is divisive. But irrespective of who you support, even a Lewis would have to look at that and go, that's the sort of thing that at the top of my game I was able to do. And I'm not saying that Lewis won't do it again, but Max was just head and shoulders above the rest. And that was a world champion's drive, no doubt. In the land of one of the other inspirational wet drivers, Ayrton Senna. And at the end of it, I guess somewhat frustrated, when Lando Norris said, well, that's luck for them, nothing more, they got lucky. Which I'm not going to sort of rub that in Lando's face, because I don't think...
That's not clever.
Yeah, it was an interview he did. Yeah, well, look,
what did he say?
It's frustration, isn't it? He was quoted on Sky as saying they were lucky. They got lucky with, just when they didn't make the tyre stop, then there was a red flag, then they could take a free tyre stop. Yes, there was an element of luck.
He won by 20 odd seconds, David.
Yeah,
By
but
20.
the pit stop. He got the pit stop. Listen, I'll tell you who was bloody lucky was Jordan Grand Prix when I led the majority
here
of
we
the
go
race
again. Here, start the musical story.
Until just before the virtual safety car, not virtual safety car, sorry, they stopped the race because Fernando crashed, and I think Mark Webber crashed into him, or vice versa. And I did the lion's share of leading, and then I ended up finishing 5th because of they never restarted the race. You were lucky.
Great story my mother always told me. Son, remember this. Always better to be born lucky than rich. And I was born very lucky.
And then you ended up rich.
I tried to become rich and I'm still working on it.
Yeah. Well, you've achieved that, that's for sure. So look, I say I'm not beating up on Lando at all on that. I think that that day in history was about Max being at his brilliant best. He's shown it before in the wet. As we've said on this podcast before, Lando is the real deal. He will have his moment. He will challenge for the world title, whether it is in the remaining races of this year or whether it's next year, where there's an element of stability. And McLaren are certainly going into it, arguably best place for that. So, his time will come.
David, I'm sorry. I have to call you to some form of order there. Lando hasn't quite got there yet. He hasn't got there on the start. He hasn't got there on the pole position run to the corner. He has the speed, beyond any doubt he's got the speed. But there's nothing in me that tells me that I've seen in Lando something that I saw what Max could do on Sunday. Nothing. I'm sorry, it's just not there. So Lando has to look at himself long and hard this winter into the mirror and say to himself, if I'm going to be a great world champion, I have a lot to learn here. And I need to start replaying those videos about what it really is like to be hard, tough, and victorious. And I'm sorry, at this moment in time, he hasn't got it.
My God, Eddie, you are a hard man.
It's a fact.
Well, look, the facts are...
He hasn't translated those into race wins. He dicked around on the podium. He's dicked around on the start line. Honestly, how many races should he have won this year? Tell me, David.
Well, a few more probably than he has.
And why did he not get them?
Yeah, because he hasn't converted the starts, and he wasn't maestro in the rain in Brazil. So I think for me, Lando has it. I think Lando will deliver it.
When?
Well, in the future.
What's the future mean? Will you or I be alive to see it? No, I won't.
I hope so. I hope we'll be alive to see it.
Jesus,
anyway,
so do I. Not sure, mind you. But anyway.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that what we're witnessing, and Lando has said it himself in a previous interview that Max is the benchmark in Formula One right now, and Max schooled them all on Sunday.